John, let's go to some of these Twitter questions. I think this is a good time for that. Let's go to the first one, which has a lot to do with the trade potential interest from the Phoenix Suns in Terry Rozier. So quick question from Robert Williams, Draft TV guy. Also knows the guy who threw I believe it was a shoe through the window. Is that what it was on draft night? I'm just saying. Anyway, I'll never forget him, even though he's changed his Twitter profile handle like several times. Quick question for the podcast. We've got two from him. Any chance to get an unprotected pick for Terry Rozier, or what do you think a package would look like? I'd like to think we could get an unprotected pick. I'd like to think that Phoenix is confident enough in their team that seems less risky to them, because there is a lot of talent on that squad, but it's still very young. And so I think it would be top 3 protected if we got a pick, even though Terry's pretty awesome player. We love him very much. We drafted him at 16. I think they'd still go at least top 3 protected, John.
I feel Phoenix is really desperate, and you can't put anything past put Robert Sarver and what they're.
And they just fired somebody, so big moves are necessary. Right. That's right.
Former Celtics assistant GM Ryan McDonough gets fired. I think it's possible that they're going to be very desperate. That seems like it's a lot to give up, though, for a team that hasn't proven anything and probably is, even if they have Ayton and they have Booker, it seems like it's a lot to put an unprotected pick on the table. I don't think it would happen. I mean, this is what would a package look like. Yeah, I think first of all, there isn't, unless you include Bridges, I don't think you even consider a deal with Phoenix. And I'm not sure what else you could really get. You don't really want Josh Jackson. You need some shooting. You're not getting Ayton. You're not getting Booker. I don't really want to touch TJ Warren. I think it's Bridges. I don't think I want Bender or for crying out loud. Well, I don't want Bender. I know I don't want Bender. He was a guy we looked at in that Jaylen Brown draft. We talked a lot about him, his potential, and perhaps he can scratch that. But as somebody who you give up Terry Rozier for, who I think is going to prove himself to be somewhere in the almost $20 million a year range as a player, that's too much value to give up for a guy who really hasn't shown he's an NBA quality player.
Yeah, no, I got to go with a pick just because I think that's what the team needs. I know you could go pick up another young player, but you're really just continuing to delay the inevitable when these contracts come up. And if they do pay off the way you want them to, then you've got to pay the player. The pick is the best way to delay all of that. And if you want to make a big move, a pick is always an easy one to include in a trade. So if you've got the salary, et cetera, to make such a deal. So, and I also think if they really intend to move Terry, you'd like to think that they would do it this season long before the trade deadline. Unless they were to do it all in one big crazy package at the trade deadline, which is a whole different decision, a whole different ball of wax than just trying to do a deal with Phoenix and sending him out. So I think you go for the trade asset. I think you give Marcus Smart more minutes, you give Jaylen Brown more minutes, and you give Marcus Morris more minutes as a result if you're going to make a move with Terry. But I think a pick is really the only thing that makes sense, and you combine it with, whatever salary, not necessarily a young player.
I mean, you look at Bridges, you're only going to lose 1 year of his. If you were comparing Bridges to a similarly scheduled pick, one, you know what that guy can do in the NBA to some degree, and two, it's one less year. I don't think Bridges would be the problem. I think it's a question if you had somebody who is maybe a year away from restricted free agency, maybe somebody who is in that 16 draft.
I hear you, but I think they need it. They need every year they can get.
That would be something I would be probably more concerned with. But if you're dealing with a guy who's got another 2 years before he even gets to that restricted free agency, that's the same thing almost as getting a draft pick. Only it's a sure thing because you know what you're getting.
Yeah, I just think, to your point, I realize it's only 1 year, et cetera, but I just think that whoever you trade Terry for is getting moved anyway. I mean, I get it. You can kind of shuffle the deck, et cetera, but I just think it's a piece. they know that they might lose him. If they're trading him, they're just getting a piece to make that deal for Anthony Davis or Karl Anthony Towns or whatever said rebounding center, which is what they really need, right? Does this team ever need a rebounder? Like, I mean, that's one thing they just cannot solve in Boston is rebounding. And so that big shooting, rebounding, defending big man, that's their move. And I'm not saying that Bridges isn't that player too. He is, but it's a lot different when you're talking about a pick that maybe you're combining with the Sacramento pick and you're shuttling it off to a team that's more into a potentially a rebuilding move, or they want to take a look at this year and they want to make a big splash and et cetera. So to me, I think it's a lot about moving the pick or delaying salary as long as possible. And I think that extra year does matter in that case because that's one more year, that, the pick, because it could be a future pick, right? They don't necessarily have to trade Terry Rozier for a pick this year. It could be a pick in 3 years. So then you're really delaying the salary. And I like that they have these picks that keep coming up so they can keep bringing in, young talent to build upon. It would be nice to see them keep that on some sort of a roll so they were always transitioning, out of that middle-aged veteran into, young players all at the same time so they're growing their own talent. I think that's the ticket for me. All right, so I'm going to tell you about 1 in 100. Boston sports fans, do you want to get killer seats to see your favorite team for the price of a beer or a large pizza? Tired of paying for all the inflated markups from brokers or last-minute convenience charges so you end up paying courtside prices for nosebleed seats? Go to onein100.co. That's ONEIN100.co. Feeling lucky? Try it out now. There's no other place online that's doing online raffles to win tickets to events. It's a totally new way to score tickets to your favorite events and a new way to score Boston Celtics tickets. The cost to potentially score tickets with 1 in 100 is a small fraction of the actual ticket price. Score a pair of tickets for less than the cost of a beer. Your first raffle ticket is free after signing up, and the experience of using 1 in 100 is extremely fun and exciting. From picking your lucky number to the feeling of potentially scoring premium tickets, feeling lucky? Try it. onein100.co. That's ONEIN100.co.